What's up, Christ Center Mental Health? This is me, David Lee Chusarche. I represent the Christ Center Mental Health Ministry, where I talk about mental health awareness from a Christian perspective in order to give you real hope in Jesus' name to the glory of God the Father. All right, before I get started on this announcement, before I get started on this video, I have a quick announcement for those of you that are new to the channel. Please check out the Christ Center Mental Health Ministry website. It's www.christcenteredmentalhealth.net. There you can see the On Faith and Mental Health blog. You can check out our statement of faith. You can check out the Christ Center Mental Health Ministry store. You can find out how to contact me or someone on the ministry team for 24-hour peer support. And you can find out how to support the ministry via Patreon, Venmo, or Cash App. Okay, as you can tell, the title of this video or this live stream, it's called Reading and Mental Health. This is a topic that is really dear to my heart because, as you know, I love to read, and I feel like reading is one of the things in life that really benefits mental health. So not only do I love to read, but I also feel like mental health is benefiting, or my mental health is being benefited by reading. And like if you I'm pretty sure after you get done watching this live stream, you'll see what I mean by mental health is positively impacted by reading. Because a couple reasons why I believe mental health is benefited from reading is because, number one, it develops your critical thinking skills. Like, honestly, if it wasn't for reading, I don't know where we'd be at. Like, we would live in some kind of, if people did not read, we would live in a world that's kind of like the movie Idiocracy. Like, for those, I bring this up a lot. For those of you that aren't familiar with the movie Idiocracy, you can actually watch it for free with ads on YouTube. But the movie Idiocracy is I mean, it's supposed to be a funny movie, but it's actually pretty scary because, like, the movie, like, it's about a guy who, like, he goes into the future, and in the future everybody is stupid because they stopped reading. And I mean, they're so dumb, they're sitting there watering their crops with Gatorade. And and it's because people stopped reading, and like they gave up on books. And that's, like, I'm afraid that's where we're heading as a country. So, like, that's the first thing that reading benefits mental health. But another way that reading benefits mental health is if it strengthens your attention span. You see, we live in a world. Hold on. Bradenberg says, "What's up? What's up, Bradenberg? How are you doing?" All right. So yeah, it's like we live in a world where people have such short attention spans. People, like, I mean, because, like, honestly, people will sit there and watch a TikTok. Like, I can't stand TikTok because with TikTok, it's like TikTok fuels short attention spans. Like, you sit there and, like, you watch a 3 minute long video. That's all people can handle these days. That's why. Uh, Brandenburg says, "What the Lou do?" So what the Lou do? Back to you, brother. Um, but yeah, it's like we have such a short attention spans, and, like, I feel like reading actually helps that. Like that's why, like, people say, "Oh, well, your videos are too long." I don't care if my videos are too long because, honestly, I feel like people need to, like, strengthen their attention spans. They really should. And, like, that only happens through, like, people will say, "Well, reading is so hard because you have to sit there and focus on it." Yeah, you have to focus on it, but you know what? Like, honestly, I get what people are saying when they say reading is too hard because a lot of, like, but the thing is, the brain is a muscle. Like, I'm just gonna tell you flat out, the brain is a muscle, and just like when you work out, you can't just go right in to lifting a 500-pound weight. Like, you can't do that right away. Bradenberg says it's Brit. Yeah, I figured it was you, Brit. Thank you for joining the chat. Um, but yeah, like, it's like you can't go in and lift a 500-pound weight right away. You have to start off with a 5-pound weight, and then you start go up to a 10-pound weight, and then a 15-pound weight, and just slowly work your way up. You can't just start like, well, reading is the same exact way. Like you start off reading like a paragraph, and once you get that paragraph down, then you read the next paragraph, and you just keep going until next thing you know, you're reading full chapters. Oh, Brandon says I sub. Thank you very much for subbing. I appreciate it. Um, but yeah, like it's definitely like you need to like strengthen that muscle because like man, it's so depressing. Like I really wish I try everybody who knows me knows I try and get the people that I talk to on a regular basis. I try and get them to read more. Like I don't know. I feel like like okay, like I said, I posted a status the other day on Facebook, and this is so true. I love that I came up with this. It was reading is knowledge and knowledge is power. That's exactly what it is. Reading is knowledge and knowledge is power. And like see the elites, they don't want us to read. They want us to be distracted by Gucci Mane concerts, WWE wrestling events, like stuff like ain't nothing but a chicken wing. Yeah, but yeah, like they want us to be focused on all this stuff. They don't want us to read because, like, if people started reading for themselves, then we'll start thinking for ourselves, and we won't be fooled by what the government is telling us because we'll actually be onto. Uh, Vape Time says I won't be here long. I gotta work early and a very long day tomorrow. Yeah, well, that's fine. I understand Vape Time. I appreciate you joining. All right, so okay, so I have a couple videos I wanted to like should go over and talk with you guys about. So I'll bring up the videos, and then I don't know, maybe after we talk a little bit about the videos, maybe I'll share with you guys some of the books that I've been reading. Cause like honestly, like I want to encourage people. Oh, bro, you can say my name. Okay, Joe. But yeah, like I mean, cause I want people to know like what kind of books like the type of books I mainly read are like theology, philosophy, and psychology. But I also like to read fiction books too. I feel like you shouldn't like limit yourself to just nonfiction books because fiction books can be great too. Uh, Britain says, "What be cracking?" All right. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll go over these two videos, and then after the two videos, I'll like share with you guys some of the books that I'm reading, just so you guys, I don't know, I want to encourage you guys to share whatever books you're reading with me as well. Like if you're reading a book, like feel free to like if you're friends with me on Facebook or you can hit me up on YouTube or like whatever. Just like let me know what books you guys are reading too. All right, let me go. Okay, I'm gonna go to the videos now. All right. As you can tell, the title of this video is "What Reading Does to Your Brain." By the way, I love her shirt. I wish I want a shirt like that. Book Hangover. I love that. Like,
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about how reading affects the brain, what's happening while we're reading, the long-term effects of it and benefits of it. This video couples really well with a video that I did not very long ago where I talked about why we love characters so much, why we love fictional worlds and characters and stories to such an extreme level. That was more from the perspective of an avid reader that's really deep into reading. This is more from the perspective of how reading affects our brains, how it affects our emotions, personalities, kind of showing the merit behind reading for anyone that isn't so sure that it'd be worth it or maybe wants to get into it. I find it it's so interesting how many times I've heard someone throughout my lifetime either say, I wish I had time to read, but I just don't have any
Yeah,
time.
that's I've heard that too. People say, "I wish I had the time to read, but I just don't have the time." Okay, I noticed that the people who say that they wish they had the time to read, but they don't. If you like most of the time, okay, so maybe sometimes someone may not literally have the time to read, but I have noticed that usually when people say, "Oh well, I don't have the time to read," but then you watch their lives, and they're sitting in front of the TV watching movies or television for like a few hours a day. And it's like, well, okay, if you cut out the time where you're sitting in front of the TV, say you watch TV for like 2 hours. If you cut that in half and only watch TV for 1 hour, then you'll have time to read a book for the next hour. I mean, so that's pretty much what. Usually, when I hear people say, "Oh, I don't have the time to read," usually I think it's a cop out. Like, it's not that you don't have the time to read; it's that you don't want to read. And like the thing, oh, that's what I want to say. Like about, I don't know. I've always had a love for reading. Like, I really have. Like, I know when I was a kid, when I was living with my mom and my stepdad, like my stepdad would try and get me to read his books, but like I wasn't really interested in reading his books, and he thought I just didn't like to read. But it's like, no, it's not that I don't like to read. I just don't like to read your books. I never was really into like fantasy adventure books, which is kind of ironic because I'm working on a fantasy adventure book right now. But like, but it's like I never really was into fantasy adventure books. Like, but you know what? The two books I really did like growing up as a kid, I really loved Goosebumps books, and I really loved Animorphs too. Yeah, I know I'm dating myself now, but like, yeah, I loved the Animorphs books. I loved the Goosebumps books. Those were my first introduction to reading, and I love those books so much.
Time for reading, or just completely write it off with something as simple as reading seems boring. I don't know
Like,
why it would.
it's also like when I got into like middle school, I started like reading more serious types of books. Like, I remember when I was in middle school, there was a series of books that came out. It was based on a true story. And so the first book was called A Child Called It, and that book was really heartbreaking because that book was about this guy named, I think his name was Dave Pelzer. He what was it? He was the book A Child Called It was about the abuse that his mother would do to him, and it was a really heartbreaking book. I read that book like voraciously, and then I started reading. And then the next book, The Lost Boy, I really loved that book too because it was about his life in foster care. And then the third book I thought was kind of boring, and I hate to say this because I should like it. But the third book was him as a grown man going to his mother and forgiving his mother. And like, as a Christian, I should love books like that where the person is forgiving. But I thought the book was boring. Like, I really did. I don't know. I would like to read it now just to see just to see what I think of it now as an adult. Because back then, when I read it as a kid, I thought it was a boring book. So, like, I would like to read. Actually, I would like to reread all three of those books again. Because, like, and just read it with fresh eyes, like as an adult, see what I think of those three books as an adult now.
Spend my time that way. I do find it really interesting because I would wager that the majority of people that say these things do spend their spare time somehow, whether it be chilling with a TV show or just with another hobby like video games, board games, crafting, knitting, any variety of things where people like to chill out after a long day. So arguably everybody has time for it. People do spend their time in their downtime in either hobbies or entertainment.
Yeah,
Whether
that's exactly what I was just saying. Like, everybody has time to read. It's just that, well, like, people fill up their time with other stuff that they could use for reading realistically. Like, there's people that will be like, well, I don't have time to read, but then they go out there and hunt. And it's like, well, okay, I understand you like to hunt, but like, can't you like instead of hunting one day, can't you just sit down and read a book? Like, or like they'll sit there and say, well, uh, I just like to listen to music. Well, okay, can't you like listen to music and read at the same time? Like, I don't know, just people. I don't know, like people. That's why I don't buy the whole idea. Oh, I just don't have enough time to read. No, you can if you really want to read, you can make the time.
watching a movie at the end of a long day, or just doom scrolling for hours. I don't think any of these things are necessarily bad, and I definitely am not trying to knock someone else's hobby in order to make my hobby seem superior. I just find it funny how many people undervalue reading or kind of brush it aside or think that it doesn't have the same merit as other hobbies. So I've spent a little bit of time looking into how reading affects the brain, and I figured I would do a quick video kind of summarizing some of the cool things that I've learned. One, and this is a really big one to me, is reading enhances attention span.
Yeah,
Now,
that's exactly what I was just saying. Like for those of us who grew up in like this era, like most people nowadays have such a short attention spans. And it's like that's why honestly, people tell me all the time that my videos are too long and that I should shorten my videos and stuff. I'm like, nah, like people if people are gonna watch a long video as long as it's interesting to them. And so I feel like if I was to shorten my videos, I would be kind of like being a sellout. Like I'd rather have long videos and have the people who actually want to watch. But like I don't know, I just feel like people need to like people. I don't know. I don't want to give people an excuse to not pay attention to something. Like you need to like people need to like strengthen their attention spans. Like, and the best way to strengthen your attention span is to read, like, or even write. Like I remember, like I fell in love with writing when I was like I don't know, like 5 years old because my mom used to make me write letters to my sisters like once a week, like, and because of that, I actually started to love to write. So like writing develops your attention span. Yeah, because like the reason why I say writing develops your attention span is because you have to really focus on what you're writing. You can't just willy nilly just write whatever you want to write. If you want it to make sense and whatever you're writing, if you want whatever you're writing to be logically coherent, you have to really focus on what you're writing, and like that takes a lot of attention.
nowadays, I'm 29, so I'm of the age where entertainment and social media and these things haven't been a part of my life forever. I mean, my childhood and middle school life was pretty chill as far as these things go, but I still had TV, I still had video games, I still had, dial-up internet. But the majority of my life, especially the entirety of my adult life, I have been saturated with all of these things. I want things now. I live in a microwave age, and anytime a web page takes a minute to load, I'm irritated by my internet. And I live out in the middle of nowhere, so I assure you, my internet is terrible. We also live in an age where entertainment is very flash, it's very snap, it's very constantly keep things moving. It's really interesting. I'm not really a movie buff, but it is really interesting to kind of look at more classic movies and how slow moving they are.
Yeah,
How more
that's actually a good point. Like old movies back in the day were actually had like a slow build up, and I really like movies like that have a slow build up because it's like it kind of makes the movie more suspenseful. Like, but that's how movies were like back then. Nowadays, movies are like so fast paced. Like they're like for instance, the Transformers movies by Michael Bay. Those movies are so fast paced that like I don't know sometimes when I watch those Transformers movies, they go so fast I don't even know what's going on. Like, or even like they even have movies. They have movies that don't even make any sense. Like that stupid movie Avatar? I hated that movie. I remember the first time I watched Avatar was when I was in the Pueblo State Hospital, and like that movie was so horrible. Like it's like and honestly, like I don't know. I heard some conspiracy theories about that movie, like they had like they said the blue guys were like they represented the Native Americans and the white people represented the Europeans and how they were trying to take over. It was stupid. It was a dumb conspiracy theory, but I heard that years ago. I don't know if it has any merit, but that's just what I heard. But yeah, no. The point is nowadays people are so quick to like watch these movies that are so fast paced. They don't want to watch a movie that's short. And it actually makes sense coming like to see how people don't like to read because reading tends to be too slow for most people.
They focus a lot more on character and on environment and on the experience and really helping you feel like you're there. And a lot of modern movies are a lot more flashy, a lot more like things need to be happening around every corner. I find that happens with a lot of different things. Even the way YouTube is now versus how it was is really different. People want to be concise. People want to get their point across immediately. People don't want to ramble because someone will click away if they don't get to
Yeah,
their point very quickly.
exactly. That's the thing. Like people want you to get to the point. They don't want you to like build up. Like it's actually this is kind of like a silly analogy, but like okay, just bear with me. Like, but Pastor Bodhi Bakum one time, I know like this. It doesn't really have to do with like short attention spans, but kind of has to do with like what this woman is saying about how people want you to get to the point. Like basically, Pastor Bodhi Bakum was talking one time about how when a pastor preaches about homosexuality. I'm probably gonna get dinged for mentioning this, but I don't care. But anyways, when a pastor's preaching about homosexuality, like he'll give like a 3 minute preamble. Like he'll say, "Well, I just want you to know I love homosexuals. I don't hate homosexuals. I have a lot of friends who are homosexuals." Like they'll start that like a 3 to 4 minute preamble, and then they'll start preaching about what the Bible. It's like no, just preach what the Bible says. Like, but like I don't know. It's like they sit there like I just feel like I forgot where I was going with that. Never mind. I just feel like it just that's how people are. They want you to get to a point. They don't want you to like slow down. Like they don't like for instance like there's a show on Cartoon Network called Robot Chicken, and that show literally was made for people with ADHD. Like if you've never seen Robot Chicken before, like that show goes so freaking fast. Like it'll show one scene of a robot doing this whatever, and like it'll be like for a quick 5 seconds, and then it'll go to another scene of another character doing something for like, and it'll go for that'll take like 5 seconds, and like it'll go through like different characters doing random things for like a half an hour, 5 seconds apart. Like not even from maybe like 2 seconds. Like that show, I can't. I tried watching Robot Chicken and I couldn't keep up with it. I was like, what the heck is going on? Like
B-roll, a lot of visual stuff to keep people staying on because a talking head for a long time will make people leave. I mostly do talking heads. It's what I like to watch and it's what I like to make. But it is really interesting to me how society does things very quickly. We want nuggets of information. We want TED Talks as opposed to a novel or as opposed to a lecture. And none of these things are inherently bad, but when we live in a society that's constantly trying to get information faster, constantly trying.
I do admit, like I have noticed that when I go like a week without reading, like my brain literally slows down. I have noticed that. It's almost like kind of like my brain is atrophying. Like I don't know how to explain it, but I have noticed that when I go a week without reading, it's like I'm not thinking clearly. I'm like my brain is actually moving slower. But when I read, it's like fuel. It's like filling up my gas tank pretty much. Like every time I pick up a book and start to read, it like re energizes my mind.
trying to get their entertainment faster, our attention spans are just narrowing and narrowing and narrowing. And reading is one of those things that actually expands that attention span a lot. Being able to sit still and hyper focus on one thing is something that we really struggle with today. We may read a
That's actually, it's kind of funny. Okay, when I get to the end of my video where I share all the books I'm reading, you're gonna notice like I don't really hyper focus on one book. Like I that's not how my brain works. Like I have to read multiple books. And my psychiatrist told me that's because that's how I train my mind. But there's probably truth to that. But like I can't just hyper focus on one book. Because if I try to hyper focus on one book, my mind's gonna start to wander. I'm gonna start thinking about, man, what's for dinner tonight? I'm gonna be like, oh man, I wanna go to the movies. I wanna go to the cafe go to get a Mountain Dew. Or I'm gonna be like, I wanna like watch this movie. I wanna do this, I wanna do that. That's how my brain operates when I try and hyper focus on one book. But when I read multiple books, my brain actually could focus more on the multiple books. Like I don't know what that's about. Like it's weird. If any of you guys experience what I'm talking about, let me know.
page or two and be really into what we're reading and then pick up our phones and suddenly we've been scrolling for an hour. We may sit down to do a task and as soon as we sit down think, why am I here? What did I come here to do? I'm going to reference a lot of studies in this video, and just for my own convenience sake, they're going to be linked in the description rather than me rattling off names and dates throughout this entire thing. But studies have shown that reading consistently over a large period of time not only enhances attention span so that we can sit and focus on one task without needing to reach for a phone, without getting distracted, without thinking about something else and forgetting what we're doing, actually having a solid sense of focus is expanded through more linear tasks like reading a book from start to finish. There are obviously other ways to improve your attention span as well, but reading is a really great one for that. There have also been studies that show that reading engages and exercises the left temporal cortex. That's the part of your brain that's associated with language, facts, and memory. Reading also helps you have heightened connectivity. That means that readers oftentimes connect things a lot more frequently. So maybe you learn something over here.
That's a very good point. Like I have, like I said before, I read a lot of books I read have revolve around psychology, theology, and philosophy. And I have noticed, like say like a lot of people know that I really like Michael Horton. He's one of my favorite theologians. And like I can read a Michael Horton book and he'll say one thing in one of his books, and also I'm like, hey, I remember reading that in my psychology book. And then I'll be like, wait a second, I remember reading that in philosophy. So it's like I can like make connections, and books are totally unrelated to each other, but for some reason I can connect them to each other.
Several months ago and you remembered it, and now when you're learning something over here, you're connecting them and you're melding them and being able to associate stuff with each other. Obviously everybody has this skill, but this is something that gets increased, that gets exercised a lot through engaging your mind through reading. There have also been studies that have shown that reading can lower the risk of dementia, increase emotional regulation, and increase verbal recall.
That's actually interesting. I never knew that reading can actually decrease the risk for dementia. It makes sense though, because when you're reading and you're keeping your brain off, like busy, and you're like studying, it's like it goes back to how you're strengthening your brain, and like when you strengthen your brain, then there's less chance of like your brain like become like don't be like, it's less chance that your brain will be gone by the time you get to old age. Like that makes sense. I never really thought about it like that.
Now, a lot of these things that I've just rattled off, different things that reading helps to engage the brain, helps to increase these muscles. A lot of these things are short-term benefits. If you just read a little bit, you'll start seeing results. A lot of it is long-term. You have to be reading regularly for a while to get real results. But I do find it really interesting the different ways that reading engages the brain and benefits things. Obviously, reading isn't the only way to do these things, but it is really cool that it benefits us on very specific and life applicable ways. So many people consider reading to be a waste of time, which is funny because we all waste our time with
Yeah,
our hobbies.
that's true. I've heard people say that before. Well, like not only will they say I don't have the time to read, which is bunk, but then they also say, well, reading is a waste of time, and it's like, well, isn't like she just said, isn't any time you engage in a hobby a quote waste of time? Isn't that the point? Like when you like okay, so you just got done with a hard day at work and you come home like you want to just sit down and relax. And most people what do most people do when they get off of work, they get home, they sit down and most people I mean, I dare say probably like I don't know, like maybe like 90% of people that get off work, then they what they want to what most of them will do is sit down in front of the TV and just veg out on the TV. Well, you know what? Them watching TV is a quote unquote waste of time. So like I'm not okay. I'm not trying to knock on people who watch TV. I'm just saying like you're gonna sit there and say reading books is a waste of time, but then you don't see how watching TV is a waste of time. Like everybody has their own hobby that they do, and like it's not really a waste of time if you love to do what you're doing and you like are being productive in what you're doing. It's never a waste of time.
And it's not a waste if it's something that you enjoy and relax to. I have a lot of opinions around that. But realistically, not only is a hobby that brings you joy at the end of a long day is valid in and of itself, but it also really, really helps to exercise the brain that brings us real life daily benefits. Ideally, as you're reading books, you'll also be reading from different worldviews, perspectives, and cultures. One of the reasons I love reading from morally gray characters is because I generally try to be a kind person in life, and reading from the perspective of someone who's unlikable, someone who is not making good decisions, someone who's selfish and who's not benefiting the world, definitely not the hero of the story. I find it really interesting because when a morally gray character is written really, really well, I feel like I understand the perspective of someone whose headspace I try not to be in. But I can see the humanity in them. I can see the logic that they have, the rationalizations that they give. And reading from a perspective totally different from my own is fascinating to me.
Yeah,
I really love reading
that's
fantasy.
actually I can see where she's coming from because I actually one of the things that I actually had a pastor of mine like many years ago. He always he really drilled this into my head. He said, "You never know what you truly believe until you have studied the very best arguments against what you currently believe." And I take that to heart. Like I really do. That's why I'm not afraid to read books from perspectives that I disagree with. I read a ton of atheist books. I'm right now I'm reading a book that's from an Eastern Orthodox, like an Eastern Orthodox priest. I mean, so like I'm not opposed to reading stuff that I disagree with. Like, and it's all because of this specific pastor that I take that attitude now.
And I really love reading fantasy not set in a Western culture. Reading from different cultures, different beliefs, different traditions that the entire world is based on, that the setting is based on, that the people are thinking from is such a fascinating perspective to me. It's such a cool way to explore other cultures. It's such a cool way to experience the world from a different set of eyes. There have also been studies that have shown that reading increases empathy, reading from other people's perspectives, from other people's beliefs, from
You know what? That actually reading develops empathy. That actually goes back to what I was talking about earlier about the A Child Called It series. Like when I first read the first book, A Child Called It, I felt so bad for that Dave Pelzer. Like my heart broke for him. And this was like I was like in middle school and my heart broke for him. Like the stuff that his mom did to him. Like I'm not gonna give away too much because I do highly recommend that you guys read that book. It's A Child Called It, The Lost Boy, and A Man Named Dave. I highly recommend you guys read all three of those books. But like, just to give you a hint about what was one of the things that Dave's mother did to him. She locked him up in the bathroom with like ammonia and bleach, in the bathroom. And anybody who knows anything about ammonia, that's actually a lethal combination. He could have died breathing that stuff in. And the only reason why he lived was because he stuck his face in the air vent. Like, I mean, that's just one of the many things that his mother did to him. That's not even the worst thing that his mother did to him. Like, but yeah, Child Call It was such a good. Like when I read that book, my heart literally broke for Dave Pelzer. And then when it came to the Lost Boy about him being in foster care, that book resonated with me because at the time I was in foster care, and so I felt like I was able to relate to him on that.
other people's world views and experiencing the world from another person's shoes a lot of times can help us to stop being so narrow-minded, to stop being so focused on how we see the world and how we experience the world, and really broaden that and help us to have a lot more empathy and a lot more care for others in humanity. I primarily read fiction, but I do enjoy nonfiction here and there as well. When I do read nonfiction, I tend to choose stories that inspire me. I'm really into rock climbing, so naturally reading and watching the documentary for The Push was...
Okay, just in case, I want to know, have you guys ever heard of this guy Tommy Cladwell? Because like she's talking about this guy who was a clock climber, and I could have sworn, I wonder if this is the same guy, because there was I remember years ago there was a story about a guy who was a rock climber, and like I forgot what mountain he was climbing up, but he got his arm stuck inside the mountain and he couldn't get his arm out. So like he had two choices. Either he could just stay there stuck to the mountain and die hanging there, or what he ended up doing was he cut his arm off and then climbed down the mountain, and he then after he got to the bottom he walked to the closest town so he could get medical treatment. I I don't know if that's this story, but I don't know. She doesn't really go into it, but I wonder if that was the same guy that I'm thinking of, Tommy Caldwell.
wonderful for me because it's something that I'm very passionate about, something that I really care about and love spending my time doing. And it's from the perspective of someone who is obsessed with it and someone who has pushed themselves to do something kind of unbelievable within the rock climbing world. Growing up in school, my favorite historical figure to study about was Harriet Tubman. So reading books like She Came to Slay was
Yeah,
so...
I like Harriet Tubman, but one of my favorite autobiographies though is the autobiography of Malcolm X. Like that was such a good book. Like I read that book and like I couldn't put it down. I actually want to read that book again, like because I like the movie, and like honestly, like I actually really admire Malcolm X. I really do. I like Malcolm X more than Martin Luther King Jr. to be honest, and at least like it's kind of like Martin Luther King Jr. People always like try and like build up Martin. Like first off, Martin Luther King Jr. number one was a womanizer. He cheated on his wife. He with all these mistresses. He was also a heretic because he was a modalist. So like I don't really like Martin Luther King Jr. Malcolm X though. Malcolm X was faithful to one woman. He was very straight laced. Like he didn't have mistresses. And like the thing is, Malcolm X is all about uplifting his people. Like so I actually like Malcolm X. Like
so
you know
fun.
and you know what the thing about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, like towards Malcolm X's life, or towards the end of his life, Malcolm X started to see more about how black people and white people, Asian people, Native American people, and Latin people could work together. Like Malcolm X is heading in that direction. Unlike Martin Luther King Jr., who before he was assassinated, he said that I fear we're integrating into a burning building. And Martin Luther King Jr. was actually getting away from the idea of integration. So it's kind of interesting how both of their lives, they're both on polar opposites. And then when it came to changing their mind, they went again to polar opposites, except it's kind of like they switched roles. It's kind of interesting that way.
For me, getting to understand her story a little bit more, getting able to get a little bit deeper into her personal life and into her accomplishments other than the Underground Railroad, her most notable and wonderful thing that she did. But there's so many little things that I got to learn so much more about. I also really, really like rescue stories like The Deadliest Sea and Into the Abyss, because these are stories that talk about people who are in impossible situations, who have to suffer so much as they're waiting for rescue, and then you get to see the people that are risking their lives in order to save other people. A lot of times reading true stories of what people have gone through in life, what they've survived, or what they've participated in helping really broadens my perspective. I quit being so selfish, or at least I like to think I do. I quit thinking of the world from such a narrow scope, and a lot of times it inspires me to really want to participate in bettering the world in small ways or in big ways. It broadens my perspective, which I think is really, really important for us being decent humans, is to not view the world only.
What? There's enough of that. Yeah, let's see. Let's look at the comments. Okay, so Joe says, Joe says, "Hey, Brian, it's me." Okay, Brian says, "What's crack-a-lackin'?" All right, so the next one more video, and then I want to share with you guys some of the books that I'm reading. Like,
saved as I passed by. But before I got to the top, my foot slipped on a weak branch and it snapped. I plummeted down, down, and down until...
Francis will be with you shortly.
Oh, thank you.
I really found this video interesting because she's gonna be talking about how fiction books can improve your mental health. And it's interesting because I never really thought about how fiction books affect my mental health. Like I've always enjoyed reading fiction books, but I never really thought about how, like, I already knew how reading nonfiction books can affect your mental health because it, like I said, it helps you, it hones your creative thinking skills, it helps your short attention span and stuff like that, helps you to focus. But fiction books, when it came to fiction books, I always thought, well, this is just something I read for fun. Like,
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Neverland Therapy Book Psychology Club group. Today I'd like to discuss books and therapy. Being no stranger to the talking couch, I am a strong advocate for talk therapy. Be it over the phone, through text, in person, no matter what method, talk therapy is an undoubted necessity when dealing with issues of the self. Even issues of the many, if your situation calls for couples therapy or group therapy. The word therapy refers to the treatment of a disorder to relieve pain. This pain can be physical or psychological. As you grow older, both become more frequent. You could sleep wrong and wake up with both back pain and anxiety for dealing with the day ahead of you on no sleep. It's wonderful being an adult. I remember the first time I walked into my therapist's office. I was holding this book. Yes, this exact book.
you know what? Like, I like this because, like, I'm actually a really big Stephen King fan. Like, I know Stephen King, a lot of his books tend to be kind of inappropriate. Like, I mean, inappropriate's a lot. Uh, no, trust me, his Stephen King's books get really, really bad. Like, I wouldn't recommend just reading any book from Stephen King. Like he has books that are better than others, but he also has some books that kind of come across like porn, to be honest. But like, but he does have a lot of other good books. And actually, this kind of reminds me of a funny story. I remember when I was in foster care, my caseworker wanted to see about sending me to live with my sister and her husband. And like, so at first, before she just sent me out there, I had to go out there for like a 2 week trial period just to see how things go. And my foster brother, he lent me some of his Stephen King books that had something to do when I was on the airplane. And when I got okay, so then my sister, she found out about the Stephen King books. And for those of you that know about my sisters are very strong Pentecostals. They're about being positive and stuff like that. And she felt like those books were too dark. So I remember this clear as day. She like was talking to me, and she had me throw away the Stephen King books. And then I thought my foster brother was gonna be mad, but when I came back home to the foster home, I told him, I was like, "Hey Eric, my sisters made me throw away your Stephen King books," and I thought he was gonna be mad, but actually he just laughed about it. I was surprised, but like, but I don't know. I always liked Stephen King. Like, I don't know what it is. It's kind of like a guilty pleasure because, like, I don't know. Stephen King has always been my favorite author, and he probably will always be my favorite author.
I even have a little card in it somewhere from the day I was first there. And when my therapist saw what I was reading, she said, "Oh, yeah, you gotta stop reading that, sweetie." And then I did what any other reasonable person would do. I left. Just kidding. Don't do that. Give it a chance. Or find another therapist if you don't vibe with the first one you see. Either way, I allowed her to explain, and then I told her, no. I would not stop. I would never stop.
Oh,
So there had to be another way, because this was not the root of my problems, but a remedy. We discussed back and forth the psychological distress one can undergo when reading horror, and I explained...
People act like that. They act like horror books is so bad. First off, just because it's a horror book doesn't mean it's gonna affect. Like, I don't know. Like you could watch a horror book, or no, you could read a horror book or watch a horror movie, and it won't have like I guess if you get too obsessed, but that can apply to anything. Like if you get too obsessed with anything, it can harm you. But like reading a horror book or a horror novel, watching a horror movie, there's nothing like people. I feel like we live in a day and age where everybody wants to be what I call fake positive. That's how it is. They want to be all like kind of like Joel Osteen. Oh, you just gotta be happy. You gotta smile. And it's like no, like life isn't like that. Sometimes life is very dark and gritty.
The experiences within these pages are not mine. When my mind catastrophizes
for those of you that are all about being fake positive, why don't you read the book of Ecclesiastes sometimes? The book of Ecclesiastes will actually be like a wake-up call to you because the book of Ecclesiastes is not a fake positive book. Like
the events before me, I know they are not real. But because I am the main character, it makes the possibility all too probable. Reading about someone else's catastrophes allows me to numb myself to those possibilities and is a method of desensitizing myself to the fictional horrors while dealing with my own real ones. Look, it may not make sense to you. It didn't make sense to my therapist, but it makes sense to me, and that's all that matters when dealing with my own panic. When people say reading is an escape, it's not just a fun and quirky little quote to be stitched on a pillow or printed on a novelty bookmark. It is a true escape. Escape. You briefly cease being yourself and become part of a different story. If your own story is too difficult to bear at a certain moment, or even for a whole day, a book flexes your mind into challenging your own reality and picturing a different one before you. Even if the most
Yeah, that's true. Like when you like read a fiction book, it transfers you into another world. I know people say, "Well, that's why I play video games because video games take me into another world." It's like, yeah, but like with a book, so you can actually imagine the things are like video games. The video games take away the imagination because you can see on the screen what's going on. But when you read a fiction book, you have to literally imagine the scenes that are going on in your head. You have to picture what's going on. You can't just look at a screen and be like, oh yeah, that's what's going on the screen. I feel like video games and movies prevent you from like video games and movies actually destroy imagination.
terrible thing is happening to the characters in the book you're reading, you, while reading, know you'll be okay. So, as much as I recommend talk therapy for those that need help, I also highly recommend literary therapy for everyone. This, of course, is only my experience, and not everyone will line up with my preferences. Reading horror for some could have quite the opposite effects. You know yourself better than I do, so make your own decisions. One common misconception about therapy I hear is people saying they don't need it because nothing is wrong with them yet. But many don't realize that therapy is not just a treatment to an existing issue, but a preventative method to alleviate underlying traumas that may have yet to reach their surface. You don't want to wait until you're, just deal with it before. I am very eloquent. If you are alive, you need someone to talk to. It doesn't matter how introverted you are. Part of being human is needing to be understood, and if the people around you simply don't, sometimes the fictitious people in our stories do. I'm not saying to lock yourself in a room of books and never return, though I know you'd like...
Actually, you know what? That would be a dream come true. If I was locked in a room with a library full of my favorite books, I would absolutely love that. Like as long as there was a toilet in there, so I could do my business. Like I would, or like say I was locked in a room, and I had a toilet in there so I could do my business, and I had like a whole library full of my favorite books, and I would just like I would love that. Like I'll spend every single day just reading. I have to eat too, but someone could just bring me meals. Like, actually, now that I think about it, I think I kind of just described prison. Actually, well, okay, I don't want to be in prison, but like, I would not mind being in a room full of my favorite books. So,
nothing more. Because I'd like nothing more myself. But that's why I need therapy. To read about strong characters, we absorb their traits into ourselves, into our minds, and can then channel their strength when we need to. Reading truly is a superpower. Take this quick article from Harper's Bazaar, for example. It reads, in 2013, a study of 96 patients that suffered with mild depression found that those who read saw improvements in their symptoms. In comparison, those in a control group who didn't receive bibliotherapy treatment didn't see any change.
well, okay, so as in 2013, a study of 96 patients that have suffered with mild depression found that those who read saw improvements in their depression. See, that's another thing. Like 96 patients found that when they read, their depression was improved. That's another reason why people should read. Like 96 patients, and like the ones who didn't read didn't change at all. Like that, if that's evidence to that reading really does improve your mental health.
Ooh, bibliotherapy, a new favorite word. This article continues with, the New School for Social Research supports these findings. They establish that reading fiction improves theory of mind, which is the ability to empathize with others and understand different beliefs to your own. I found this article interesting since it focuses on reading fiction to improve mental health. And when you think about it, the stories we become acquainted with, the characters we grow to love, they become part of who we are as individuals, and based on their backgrounds and described appearances, we see them as real people. This is why inclusion and representation in fiction is so important, not only for the characters, but for the authors who bring them to life. Different perspectives and cultures from different parts of the world bring readers together in a collective dialogue.
Yeah.
This, in and of itself, is a form of therapy. I've seen jokes on TikTok and Instagram
You know what?
saying you can't raise a generation.
I never really thought about it like that. Like, but she's right. Like, because when you're reading a fiction book, yeah, I can see where she's coming from.
On Harry Potter and the Hunger Games and not
Okay.
expect them
Okay, she lost me there. Like, I don't know, Harry Potter. Like, I don't know if Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is the first Harry Potter book, but whatever was the first Harry Potter book, I tried reading that when I was like in middle school. I tried reading it, and that book bored the crap out of me. Like, one of my foster brothers really liked the book, but I don't know. When I read that first book, it seemed childish. I just couldn't get into it. And Hunger Games, I don't know anything about Hunger Games. Never read the book, never seen the movies. Like, I have no idea what the Hunger Games is about. If I'm not mistaken, though, isn't it supposed to be like there's some kind of dystopian future? Like, I don't know anything about Hunger Games, to be honest.
to gather and rise against their oppressors. And I agree. These books are beloved for a reason. They're
Like,
introduced to
Honestly, if I'm gonna read a fiction book, I prefer to read like either a superhero book or even a romance novel. Like, I don't know, or even like a John Grisham. I love John Grisham books. And for those of you that don't know anything about John Grisham, he writes a lot of like courtroom dramas that are actually really good. Like
soft minds that were still in the process of being molded and helped shape viewpoints and turn heads in a specific direction. Yes, they're problematic. But the fact that we all know they're problematic actually makes my point. We read other books and discuss them with other readers and therefore understand that not everything in a book should be taken literally. Church! Pardon me, wrong pipe. We as intellectuals understand that most, if not all, books are meant as metaphors, as guides and lessons, a smaller commentary on a larger topic. Not everyone will always believe in what a book claims, and they don't have to. Not everyone will gain the same message from the same book. That's the beauty of it. But no matter what message, reading will always be a form of learning something you may not have known before, be it about someone else or even about yourself. And
Yeah.
that
that's true. Like that is very true. Like when you read, like especially if you read like a fiction book or even a nonfiction book, you do discover things about yourself that you probably weren't aware of before. Like for instance, like I don't know, like when I read psychology books, like I like to read books about how psychology and Christianity intermix with each other, and like I start to learn certain things about myself when I read. Like I start to realize, hey, like it's okay to say, like for instance, let me put it this way. I remember back when I was staying in this place called New Creations. Like I used to be a big time people pleaser, and it wasn't until I read this book called Boundaries in Dating by Dr. Henry Cloud that I started to realize that I was a people pleaser. Because I didn't realize it before I read that book. And I read that book and I was like, you know what? I am a people pleaser. And it was because of that realization that I started to realize it's okay for me to say no to people sometimes. And I was like, I can say no and not even give an explanation. Like just because I have to say it's no because I said it's no. And I'll admit, when I first started saying no to people, like it felt really uncomfortable. I didn't want to hurt people's feelings, but now I'm like I don't care what people think of me now. Like, yeah.
is therapy. Though fiction has been discussed as an appropriate therapeutic genre, nonfiction can be argued for the same reasons. Biographies and historical accounts of actual people and their non-fictitious experiences could at times be even more powerful in some readers' minds. Emphasis on some. The differences between nonfiction and self-help, though, is where I draw the line. Self-help books to me. This is simply my opinion.
Yeah, I think self help books are bogus too. Like honestly, and I don't know. I think I tried to read self help books when I was younger and I was in juvenile detention. There was two specific self help books that I tried to read and they were complete bogus. Like one was called "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. It's All Small Stuff." That was stupid. That book was dumb. Another book was called like Seven Habits for a Healthy Mind or something. I don't remember, but that book was bunk as well. And then I don't know, I even tried reading a Joel Osteen book, and Joel Osteen is pretty much he's pretty much a motivational speaker. Like I don't think the thing about Joel Osteen though, I would have no problem with him if he didn't claim to be a pastor. If he just took the title of a motivational speaker, that'll be fine because that's what he is. Like his book, Become a Better You, that is straight up a motivational topic. And I don't know. I feel the same way that she feels about self help books.
Are a bit of bullshit. Perhaps not all, but for the most part, I find self-help books to be a predatorial, money-hungry project focused on profiting off individuals with an emotional problem that needs solving. I could be wrong in this, and if you have an opposing opinion, please voice it in the comments below. Maybe if you have a very good self-help book, let me know. I just feel like when I read the back of a self-help book, my initial thought is, nothing in this book is going to help anyone. Nothing between this jacket is of any substance or use to me in my growth as a person. And yes, I could be generalizing. Sometimes I do that. But it has a cult mentality, I feel, that just makes me put it back on the shelf and just walk away. Gravitating towards something with a story rather than a bullet point, this is the one-size-fits-all recipe for emotional success. Of course not. Of course that doesn't exist. And that's what self-help books sometimes try to advertise. 12 steps to healing, 13 steps to finding yourself.
Yeah.
No, they're
exactly. Or even Joyce Meyer. I can't stand her, but she has a book out there called Battlefield of the Mind. Like this, these people are basically just motivational speakers.
Steps, because everyone has different shoes. Wow, such poet. Self-help books to me are presenting resolutions without knowing the problem, whereas fiction and nonfiction books present an issue and how, in this account, this is how these individuals solved such a problem. And if this shoe fits you, these steps may work. Wow, really, such poet. Alright, we discussed reading, now I'd like to discuss writing.
Alright, that's enough of that. Yeah, that was actually pretty good. I don't know, honestly, it's just, if you like to read, trust me, I hope this video helps you understand how reading can improve your mental health. All right, now as promised, I'm gonna show you guys the books that I've been reading. I read a lot. Like I said, I can't just read one book. I have to read multiple books. And when I say multiple books, I don't want you guys to think, oh, I'm just reading 3 or 4 books. No, I read stacks. And my psychiatrist told me, because I brought it up to my psychiatrist one time, because I wanted to know if it was something serious. I was am I in a manic episode? Is that why I read so many books at once? And so I asked him if that meant I was in a manic episode, and he said no, that's just how you train your mind. I was like, oh, that makes sense. But anyways, so the one stack of books, I'm reading this right here, is called Understanding Mental Illness, a comprehensive guide to mental health disorders for family and friends. This book is actually a really good, they go over different, they don't go over every single mental illness, because this book is only that thick, but they don't go over every single mental illness. They just go over the main ones like bipolar, schizophrenia, stuff like that. And it just talks about how family members can be more supportive of people with certain mental illnesses. And then I'm reading this book, Thinking God's Thoughts: An Introduction to a Pilgrim Worldview. that book is pretty interesting. This book is kind of redundant because it's kind of like I'm actually gonna think about putting like well no this book is kind of redundant because like it's pretty much presenting the presuppositional apologetics style, but I'm already pretty familiar with presuppositional apologetics, so I don't even know why I even started reading this. But I'm the type of person that once I start to read a book, I have to stick it through it until the very end, no matter what. That's just how I am. And then these next two books I started reading because I want to compare them side by side. The first book is called Natural Law and the Two Kingdoms by David Van Drunen. And this other book is called Theonomy and Christian Ethics by Dr. Greg Bonson. And like the reason why I started reading these two books because like okay, I lean more towards the two kingdom theology side, but I wanted to really understand like the two both the sides for myself. And so like one thing I have noticed about two kingdom theology versus theonomy is two kingdom theology not only do they ground their argument in biblical text, but they actually ground their argument in the early church. Whereas like when I'm reading Greg Bonson's book on theonomy, he doesn't really go into church tradition. He just kind of says, "Oh, this is what the Bible says," but he doesn't. It's like it's almost as if he's what's the word? He's severed from church tradition, almost like he doesn't want to address church tradition. Whereas Van Drunen addresses church tradition. That's what I noticed about that. And then the other book is by Heath Lambert. It's called Theology of Biblical Counseling. I really like this book. It's really helping me because you guys probably already know. I don't know. You guys may or may not know, but I've been pursuing getting my degree in biblical counseling. So this book has been very helpful in me pursuing that degree in biblical counseling. Which, by the way, I start my next course on January 5th is when I start my next course. So please be in prayer for me about that. I'm kind of nervous about starting out because I really want to do a really good job at this because I don't want to let my church down because my church is paying for me to take these classes and I really want to do well. I want to excel at these classes because I mean, I want to be able to do something like, I don't know, I want to be able to help other people with this degree. Uh, then the other book, I had a friend of mine recommend me this book a while back. It's called "Longing to Know: The Philosophy of Knowledge for Ordinary People," and like I really enjoy this book. Like it's from a woman named Esther Lightcap Meek. This book is really deep. It's like it's not that big of a book, but like there's a lot of information like in this book, and like it's really good. And hold on. And then the next book I'm reading is this book, The Quest for the Trinity. I just started this book, so I'm kind of interested on where it's going to go. Right now in the book, he's just covering the historical positions of the Trinity. Like, but I kind of want to see where he leads with that, to be honest. And then this book, okay. Like I said, I'm going to school. I'm taking classes to become certified biblical counselor, but I love integrationism, which is why I kind of refer to myself as a biblical integrationist because I like biblical counseling and I like integrationism. Which, for those of you that aren't familiar with the two terms, biblical counseling comes from the Greek term, I think it's like nutheo or something like that. It means to admonish. So biblical counselors, they look at issues that someone may be experiencing. They first and foremost will look and say, okay, that's a heart issue. And so they'll do what they can to address the heart issue. Like they'll go straight to the root. Whereas integrationism they believe that Christianity and psychology can mix together. Yeah, integrationists will say that scripture go like trumps psychology, but they do think that psychology and Christianity can go together. And so I agree with both positions. So therefore, I'm a biblical integrationist. But anyways, I say all that because this book right here is called The Biblical Basis for Christian Counseling for People Helpers. And the reason why I brought up what I said is because Dr. Gary Collins, he's a integrationist. And this book I'm reading by Thomas More is called Care of the Soul. I just started reading this, so I'm kind of interested on where this is going to go. And those of you, like I said, you guys know how much I love Michael Horton. So I'm reading this book by Michael Horton called Pilgrim Theology. I actually, we went to, when I was going at my old church that I used to go to back in Colorado, we actually went through this book as a Bible study. And then even like at the church I go to now, we went through this book as a Bible study too. And I really love this book. Michael Horton really does a really good job at breaking things down for people to understand. And then this book, this book is written by another biblical counselor. And I really like this guy. His name is Paul David Tripp. He's a biblical counselor. He's probably one of the best biblical counselors. But this book right here is called Instrument in the Redeemer's Hands. Like, honestly, this book, if you really are interested in learning more about biblical counseling, I recommend checking out this book because he really, like, this book and the Theology of Biblical Counseling are two of the best books on the subject. And this book is from another integrationist. It's called Psychological Science in the Christian Faith. This book will actually kind of challenge you, actually. Like, if you read this book, he talks a lot about the different views of how science and religion can mix together. And like he does kind of give the hint that he's a evolutionary or theistic evolutionist. He does kind of get that hint. I don't know if he is or not. I just get like the impression that he supports theistic evolution, but I'm not entirely sure because he doesn't come outright and say that. But there's a couple things he has said that I felt like hinted towards it. But I don't really care. I think you can be a theistic evolutionist and still be a brother. So, this book, I really love this book. Like, one of my favorite integrationists is named Dr. Mark McMinn. And he has this book right here called Psychology, Theology, and Spirituality in Christian Counseling. I'm going through this book again for like the third time already because I love this book so much. Alright, so if you think that's all that I'm reading, you gotta think again because this is just the beginning actually. Hold on. Oh man. All right. If you think that's just all, you're like, okay, I got even more. So this book I just started reading like the other day, so I'm still in the beginning of it. It's called Not by Chance: Learning to Trust a Sovereign God. Like, I just started reading this book the other day. So far it seems pretty good. He just basically talking about how God's sovereignty, we can rest safely knowing that God is sovereign. And then this book called Serious Times: Making Your Life Matter in an Urgent Day. Again, I just started reading this book the other day too, but he's talking about how everything you do in life will matter in eternity, which I think that's a very good point. And this book, it's kind of funny. It's called Pleasing God by R.C. Sproul. I found out I didn't even know I had this book, to be honest. I was going through my books the other day and I found this and I was like, when did I get this book? So I decided to pick it up and start reading it. And then I decided to start reading this book because those of you that don't know me, I'm a Presbyterian, so I believe in infant baptism. But and my wife, she grew up more in a Reformed Baptist circles, so she she does me and her kind of go back and forth about baptism, and so I decided to start reading this book again so I could kind of strengthen my arguments on infant baptism. And and then there's this book called The Heresy of Orthodoxy, which is a critique on Bart Ehrman. For those of you that don't know who Bart Ehrman is, he's one of the leading atheist New Testament scholars. Like he's actually formidable. I wouldn't recommend going up against him unless you know exactly what you're talking about, because if you don't know what you're talking about, Dr. Bart Ehrman is going to tear you apart. But that's why I really like this book, because Michael Kruger, he does a fantastic job of breaking down Bart Ehrman's arguments and and just saying what the actual truth is. And then again, this other book from Dr. Mark McMinn. Here it is. This is actually, I love this book. I'm going through this book for the second time now. It's called Integrative Psychotherapy Toward a Comprehensive Christian Approach. This is actually a really good book, too. And then this book, okay, so people don't know this about me, but since I grew up in foster care, I never really had a relationship with my biological dad. I still don't have a relationship with him. But when I became a Christian, I actually had a connection with a guy named Marv who became kind of like a spiritual father to me, and he sees me as his son. Like what was I saying? And so yeah, me and him disagree on Reformed theology, but I still greatly admire him. And so he gave me this book that he wrote. It's titled "In the Time of Trouble He Shall Hide Me," and his name is Marv Don. And this is actually a pretty good book. Um, okay, speaking about Eastern Orthodox, I actually got this book a while back. It's called Bread and Water, Wine and Oil, An Orthodox Christian Experience of God. This book is quite interesting. I'm actually quite intrigued by the Eastern Orthodox position, because I never really knew too much about Eastern Orthodoxy, but I have been really enjoying the stuff I've been learning about them. I don't get it twisted. I'm not gonna become Eastern Orthodox. I'm just not. I'm not at all. I'm just kind of intrigued at some of the stuff they have to say. And then this book by Michael Horton titled "Too Good to Be True." Honestly, if you're going through any kind of immense suffering, I highly recommend you get this book, because this book, when I was going through the toughest time of my life, this book got me through it, because he talks a lot. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, this is a really good book. Um, and this book by another integrationist named Larry Crabb is called Finding God. This is actually pretty. I'm not done with this book. I started reading it a few years ago, and I put it up, and I just decided to pick it back up and read it again. So I had to restart this book. And and then this book by Vodi Bakum, I really love this book. I'm not done with it yet, but so far it's called Family Shepherds Calling and Equipping Men to Lead Their Homes. Honestly, before I started reading this book, I always knew that I was a leader of my household, but I didn't know exactly what that looked like. So Vodi Bakum has really shown me what that looks like from a Christian perspective in this book. Uh, There's this book, Counseling in Christianity, 5 Views. This is a pretty good book for those of you that want to know what exactly a counseling session, a Christian counseling session should look like. You should check out this book. And it has different, it's like okay, so first, before you read this book, you have to read this book called Psychology and Christianity, 5 Views, which is 5 different views on Christianity and psychology. And when you read that book, then you can read this book as a sequel, because if you read this book at first, it won't make any sense. But if you read the Psychology and Christianity, 5 Views book, and then you read this book, then it'll make sense, because then you'll understand all 5 of the views, for because the first book gives you the groundwork for this book. And there's Competent to Counsel, or Competent to Minister, which is basically a critique on Jay Adams' book, Competent to Counsel. But I don't know, I feel like this book is even more anti-psychology than Jay Adams' book, Competent to Counsel. So I don't know, I'm not liking this book so far. But I'm going to keep reading it because I'm a sucker for punishment. And then there's this book, A Case for Amillennialism. I decided to pick this book back up because I really want to understand the amillennial position. I really want to get it, because I default to the amillennial position, but I want to really understand what it teaches. And then this book, What About Evil? This is a really good book. It's What About Evil? A Defense of God's Sovereign Glory. This is actually a phenomenal book talking about why is there evil if God is sovereign. This is and he talks about Molinism, and it's a really good, I highly recommend this book. And then I just got this book the other day. I haven't even started it yet, but I'm planning on starting because I really like Chip Ingram. I used to listen to him on the Moody Bible Institute radio. So I'm really interested to see what this book is about. All right, so this is pretty much the nonfiction books that I'm reading at home. Yeah, I made sure I said that on purpose because I have nonfiction books that I'm reading at home, and I have nonfiction books that I'm reading outside of home. For those of you that hasn't been seeing me lately, I'll tell you, everywhere I go these days, I carry this big backpack full of books with me everywhere I go, because I never know when I'm gonna have downtime, and when I have downtime, I can stop and pull out one of my books and start reading. So anyway, the books that I'm reading outside of home, I'm reading this book called Faith of the Fatherless, The Psychology of Atheism, which this is my second time going through this book. It's really good. He talks about how a lot of atheists, a lot of the big name atheists, they hate God because they have pretty much, he didn't say exactly like this, but this is what I'm getting from the book. He's saying a lot of these big name atheists, the reason why they hate God is because they have daddy issues. He builds a pretty good case for that too. And I'm reading this book called Darwin's Doubt, which this book is actually pretty interesting. He talks about how in the geologic column, scientists can't explain the Cambrian explosion. How during the Cambrian era, we see a bunch of species that appear fully formed and they're not transition out. They're fully formed right in that area, and it's almost as if they were already created as a fully formed creatures. It's quite. I mean, Stephen C. Meyer goes deeper into it, but it's really interesting. And then I'm reading Redeeming Philosophy by Vern Poitras. This is actually a really good book. I'm going through this book for a second time. He really covers a lot of deep philosophical topics. So Vern Poitras, he is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. and and then I'm reading this book, The Resurrection of the Son of God, which is actually really good. Like, I don't agree with everything N.T. Wright says. Like, I don't like N.T. Wright's new perspective on Paul um representation, but his book, even Tim Keller has said this, his book on the resurrection of the Son of God is literally the best defense for the historicity of the resurrection. So, and then I'm reading this book, Black and Reformed by Anthony J. Carter. This book is pretty good so far. He's talking about how God, in God's sovereignty, He has brought, um, He has saved a remnant of African Americans that were slaves. God used slavery to bring African Americans to the truth in Christ. It's quite interesting. And then talking about the Orthodox Church again, I have another book about the Orthodox Church. It's called The Orthodox Church: An Introduction to Eastern Christianity. Like I said, I'm really intrigued by the Orthodox position. Like, I mean, I really am. It's quite like, it seems like they really, I don't know how to explain this, but it seems like they really make a big deal out of mystery, like, which is one thing I don't really like. I don't think everything is so mysterious. There are certain things that God is pretty straightforward about, so I don't think you should make everything into a mystery. And then I have this book that I'm going through, Living in Two Kingdoms by David Van Drunen. I read this book once years ago, and I decided to pick it up and start reading it again. And then Tim Keller, he's my favorite pastor. I'm reading this book called The Reason for God. I read this book years ago too, but I decided to pick it up and start reading it again. Uh, and then Vern Poitras, Redeeming Sociology. This is one of my favorite books, because, like, those of you that don't know me, I used to go to school because I was majoring in social work. So when I found out about this book, I was quite intrigued. I was like, Redeeming Sociology. That sounds interesting. So I got this book, and you know what? This is actually a really, like, if I was to go back to school to get my degree in social work, I would have this book like on me as I'm in all my classes. To be honest, because I feel like this book would prepare me for the woke agenda. Uh, And then I started reading this book, Knowing God by J.I. Packer. This book is so far really good. Like, like, I don't know. I just started it though, so I have to. I don't know exactly how I feel about it yet. I mean, I know J.I. Packer is a well-respected theologian, and so I know whatever he says is going to be right on. Although, I don't know, I did hear he was a continuationist, so if that's true, I kind of have to be on guard with him. But and then this is a really good book. I started this book a while back. It's called The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self by Carl Trueman. Carl Trueman is really good. He's talking about how the sex revolution has how the no not the sexual revolution has influenced culture today. And he breaks it down pretty good. And then I got this book a while back because I figured it would help me since I'm going into biblical counseling. It's called Christian Counseling Ethics, a handbook for therapists, pastors, and counselors. To be honest, I've read the first couple chapters of this book, and then, like, I don't know, I didn't really get back to it. I need to really get back to this book because I know it's going to help me when I get into my biblical counseling career. And then again with the Michael Horton, this is volume 2 of his series on justification. I read volume 1 a while back, and so I picked up volume 2, and now I'm reading this. And then again, Michael Horton, I'm reading this book, Rediscovering the Holy Spirit. Like, so I really like this book. As you can tell, I'm a big Michael Horton fan. All right, so that's all the books for the outside books. All right, the next books I want to share with you guys are the fiction books I'm reading now, because like I can't just read all serious books. I have to mix in some fiction books along with it, because like you can read you can read all the serious books, but you have to have a little fun too. Sometimes you can't be all serious. So I anybody who knows me knows that I'm a big Batman fan. So if you ever want to give me a gift, and like you can never go wrong if it's something Batman. So like I'm reading this book called Batman Resurrection, which is pretty much if you've seen the first Batman that with Michael Keaton, the one with Jack Nicholson playing the Joker. This is the sequel to that Batman movie. This book right here, Batman Resurrection, and then I'm reading this book, Batman Revolution, which is the sequel to the Resurrection. And like, okay, so the Batman Resurrection, the villain in there is Clayface. In Revolution, the villain here is Riddler. So both of these two books are the books in between the first Batman movie with Michael Keaton, and then like that was just called okay. So it goes Batman, Batman Resurrection, Batman Revolution, and then Batman Returns. And that Batman Returns is one with Catwoman and Penguin. All right. And then I'm reading. I mentioned John Grisham earlier. I'm reading this book, The Broker, which is pretty good. And then again, like I said, with Stephen King, I love Stephen King, man. I'm reading this book called Under the Dome, which this book is insane. Like if you want a book that's going to be a page turner and keep you on the edge of your seat, I recommend you read this book. And I'm reading this. This is my second time. I'm a sucker for romance books. This book is called Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. And like this book is pretty like it's a modern day, well not really modern day. It's taking place in the 1800s in the gold rush in California. And like it's a retelling of the book of Hosea, which for those of you that aren't familiar with the book of Hosea, the prophet Hosea was told by God to marry a prostitute because God was going to use that as a picture of how Israel has been whoring after other gods. So, like in this book, the guy's name is Michael Hosea, and the prostitute's name is Angel. And Michael Hosea gets told by God to make her his wife. It's actually a really good book. Like if you start reading this book, you would not be able to put it down. And then there's this book, The Hidden Flame. I just started this book and I'm still kind of like, I'm not sure where they're going to go with this book. I know it's taking place shortly after the resurrection, and it's actually somewhere it's pretty good. And there's this book. This is actually this is actually a biography about a Chinese woman named Jeanette Lee. It's titled A Girl Born Facing Outside. So it's basically her testimony. And I started reading this book, but I kind of put it down. I have to restart it now. And I like this author. I haven't really read too many books from him, but this book so far is pretty good. It's by Dean Koontz, called 77 Shadow Street. This book is pretty. I'm not, like I said, I'm not too familiar with Dean Koontz. That's why I got this book, because I want to familiarize myself with him, because I know he's a really popular author. And finally, the last book that I'm reading, the last but not least, another John Grisham book, right here called The Brethren, which this book is kind of interesting. Like it's, I don't know, I just started it, but it's kind of like a, it's kind of like there's these judges that are in prison, and they make all the rulings from prison. It's quite interesting actually. But yeah, like, so those are all the books I'm reading. Like, honestly, whatever you guys are reading, please feel free to comment below and let me know what you guys are reading. Like, or if you have any thoughts on what you want me to read next, or if you want me to do like a review on a book, let me know. And but most importantly, I want to know what you guys are reading. So comment below, let me know what you guys are reading, or if for friends on Facebook, message me. Like, I want to encourage more people with mental illness. Like, not just people with mental illnesses. I want everybody to read, but I especially want people with mental illnesses to read, because I do believe that that mental illness can not, and we won't be able to heal mental illness, but I think if more people with mental illness would read, they would greatly see a drastic improvement. Yeah, yeah, they'll still have to take their medication, but like, I just feel like if more people with mental illness read, they won't be so stuck on themselves. Like, they'll, I don't know how to explain it, but I want to see more people with mental illnesses reading, I just want to see people reading in general, because I don't want to live in a world that's going to be like the movie Idiocracy. Like, honestly, if you guys ever get the chance to, though, I think the movie's still free with ads on YouTube. You guys should watch the movie Idiocracy, because then you'll know what I'm talking about. I don't want to live in a world like that. All right, so that's basically all I have to say for that. Thank you for the viewers who watch this stream, and thank you to the viewers who are gonna watch the playback to this stream. And please, like, leave a like, and comment below. Let me know what you guys think, and share this live stream or this episode with anyone that you feel like needs to hear what I'm talking about in this message, in this video. And if you and feel free to subscribe to the channel if you want to. If you're not subscribed, yeah, I don't know what you guys are doing, please, but feel free to subscribe to the channel. And if you've been blessed by the Christ Center Mental Health Ministry, please consider blessing the ministry by either donating to Patreon, Venmo, or Cash App. For $5 or more pledges on Patreon, or for a one-time donation of $10 or more on Venmo or Cash App, I'll send you a few copies of my books as a gratification. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night and stay strong in the Lord. All right, bye.